What's up, hockey fans? This is episode 83 of the Clappercast. I'm Burke, and as always, joined by my co-host Sean. Sean, how's it going today?
Not too bad. I'd like to start today off with a bit of a quote reading here. We'll go with some quote of the week. If you're ready.
Ooh,
Just this one. This
I
one.
think I know what this might be.
This one comes out of Minnesota. Reads, "You're not going to be banging each other down low when you banged the night before, and you're about to get hammered again the next night."
Words of wisdom. I know who that is. That's the head coach of the Minnesota Wild, Dean Evason. And he was fired up after I pumped his tires last week, I think, and then he immediately had a quote of the year.
Yep. And then the team
awesome.
immediately got blown out 2 games by the Avalanche.
Yeah, they were banging the night before, I guess. They're getting
Yeah.
hammered the next day. Yeah, I know. It was a
They
bad
should
look
have
for
been
me
getting-
because I was...
They shouldn't have been getting hammered. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. It was a bad look for me because I was saying how good they looked, and then they just got annihilated by the Colorado Avalanche because they had Makar come back, and they were all fired up by that. And McKinnon just went God mode. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I get what he's trying to say with that quote. It's just very, very funny.
It's
because
a
I'm
very
not
good
very
quote out
mature.
of context. Hockey has a lot of great phrasing, and when you don't know what's happening and you don't know what it means, it just looks great out of context.
Even with context, it's pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they had a kind of a bad performance there. McKinnon had a really good series against them. And shout out to Mika Zibanejad, who had a unreal period of hockey, where he got 6 points in a period, including a natural hat trick with 3 goals 3 different ways, with an even strength power play and a shorthanded goal and 3 assists. So everyone who's been holding on to Mika Zibanejad in fantasy just had all of their dreams come true, where he basically won everybody their week, I think, because of that single performance. And then
Yeah.
the very next game against the Capitals, he out-muscled Brendan Dillon on a one-on-one late in the third period in a tied game, stole the puck off of him, shelved it, game-winning goal. So he earned himself third star of the week.
Yeah, so you and me both
with
have
that.
him in separate fantasy leagues. So we've been holding on to him with our high draft pick used on him, and then he finally makes it worth it.
He's been having a bit of a snake bit season, but he's been playing well. He's been getting a lot of the third assists on power plays and stuff, and he's
shooting a lot.
Throwing the body around. Yeah. And so he's not scoring. Last year, everything was going in for him because his shooting percentage was just absurd. But this year, he's still playing well. He's still a big part of that team, but he's just not.
He also got
Not everything is going in for him.
Yeah, he got hit hard by COVID, and it really affected his conditioning and stamina coming into the season. You could tell, apparently, watching him, he was just gassed. He was kind of a bit behind the play. It just took him a little bit to find his footing, and lately he's been a bit more reliable offensively. And hopefully we'll start seeing some of the offense he's generating actually hit the score sheet for him.
Yeah, but what a hell of a period.
I think that was the tie for the NHL record all time in points for a period with Brian Trottier.
I think so. Yeah, it was such an accomplishment. It's crazy. But yeah, I think Mika Zibanejad must hate the Capitals because last year he got his 5-goal game against them, and this year he just had that heartbreaker game winner against them.
Got to impress Papa Ovi.
Yeah, I know. Mika doing it right. So good week for him.
So after a few weeks of a lot of trash talking the Sabres and wondering when Ralph Krueger was going to get fired, it finally happened over the last week. He finally got canned from Buffalo. His quote on the way out was, "I loved every minute. What an amazing game hockey is. On to new adventures with more wisdom in the bag." It was it's a text quote, so I don't know. I can't tell if it's dripping with sarcasm or not, but we'll see.
Yeah, it sounds like if you take it at face value, he sounds like a real dad. Just, it was a great experience. I loved it. Did you see what Taylor Hall said about him leaving?
I did not see about Taylor Hall, no.
I'm going to paraphrase, but it was on video, and he had that. He got hit in the face with a slap shot in that one game against New Jersey, where Subban basically cross-checked him into the line of the slap shot. And so he had this giant jaw where his face was all swollen, which looked really weird. It was almost like when Crosby had the mumps. Um, but he was asked about, Kruger leaving, and Hall was like, well, one of the main reasons I came to Buffalo is because, Kruger was the coach. He was the first person I phoned when I was like thinking about Buffalo, and we couldn't get it done for him. There was no fault on him. It was like the players couldn't get it done for him, and he's like, we still have a good relationship, but we kind of failed him, and couldn't get the wins for him. So I thought it was interesting because like we've heard about them having a really good relationship, and then for just him to kind of voice it again.
Yeah.
And then to just kind of, and like he was saying, like, I haven't played, up to my own expectations this season. It's not really going well for me, but we have a good group of guys, but like, we couldn't get it done for Ralph. And so it's like, I don't know, you wonder how it actually was in the dressing room, because you had Kruger saying things like, Eichel didn't get hurt, but, he did, and blah, blah, blah. And, it's just weird that, you have players fessing up, basically saying like, it's kind of on us, not on him.
Taylor Hall's quote goes right in with, I think it was Ristolainen, also basically gave the same sentiment where he said, at what point do the players start taking the blame? Because he was kind of like, it wasn't the coach is the scapegoat, and what point do we as players start, getting fired or whatever?
Yeah, and Ristolainen's been vocal about, his frustrations in Buffalo before, and then I think it was it the last coach that they brought in where he's like, okay, I like this guy, I'm going to stay, basically? Or was that Kruger?
I can't
remember. I think that was last year. Where he was impressed by whoever they brought in and was like, oh, you know what? This guy's good. But, yeah, I mean, like, it's always the way it goes, right? As the coach always gets fired and tries to wake up the room, and even if it's not really their fault, if it's the players all underperforming and not competing hard, and
yeah,
I don't know, it's like that's the first step that someone's gonna make.
Yeah. So at the point of Ralph Kruger being fired, the Sabres were 6-18-4, last in the NHL. They've been shut out as much as they had won. They had 59. They currently have 59 goals. They're scoring 2.03 per game. The next lowest is Anaheim with 70 at 2.19 per game. 36 goals, 5-on-5. An interesting side note about that stat is Boston actually is second worst in that stat with 44. Found that a bit weird.
It's a god tier power play.
The Sabres have 59 goals, and McDavid has 60 points on the season. Like, that's quite concerning when a single player has outscored an entire team. Or a single player has more points than the team has goals, I should say.
And what was it, a 12-game loss streak? Or
12 or 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in the interim, they've got Don Granato as head coach, and then Matt Ellis and Dan Girardi are assistants.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, Girardi hasn't been that long out of the game. I wonder if he was almost like a player coach his last few years in the league.
I feel like he's the type, kind of that defensive, grindy defender type that kind of doesn't get much ice time, but he's probably there and stays around longer because he's such a good influence on the team.
Yeah, Brooks Orpik was kind of like that for the Capitals.
Exactly.
I know there's a lot of fans kind of want him to. He has been involved in like player development with the Capitals and like telling them how to like physical fitness, I think.
Yeah,
was
he
one
was
of
a bit
his
of a
big things.
physical beast, right? Orpik in his training.
Yeah, he's kind of like that Chris Chelios kind of guy, right? I don't think he was as hardcore as Chelios, and he was younger when he retired, but, kind of showing guys like this is the right way to do nutrition and to like work out and like off-season training, and this will help extend your career and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people kind of want him to end up being like the defensive coach for the Capitals. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I don't know. I would like to see that. But I don't know if Girardi is he like a local guy? I'm just not sure how he ended up there as a longtime Ranger, and I'm not sure if he's like from the area. But interesting to see him there. Hopefully he can help out. And then I guess Matt Ellis played for the Sabres, not that long ago either. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I was wondering at this point, we've got these guys in under the under the interim label. Moving forward, what do you see, and when is a timeline for the Sabres filling these vacancies?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about this a little bit off air, after Kruger got fired, but it'd be kind of hard to hire someone with quarantine rules, and what are you really going to do with like the last 10 games of the season or whatever it is when someone is actually able to come in. I think that Granato probably stays there for the rest of the season, and then they look at getting whoever doesn't go to Seattle.
Yeah, because I think that's the other factor that's playing in, is that I feel a lot of the biggest name coaches on the free agent market are probably waiting or in talks with Seattle. So, Buffalo would probably be in their best interest to wait until closer to when that vacancy is being filled, so that they don't just kind of grab someone because all the better options are waiting for Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, like Gallant is available, Bruce Boudreau is available. Those are probably the best options out there.
Those would be my top 2 picks as well.
Yeah. And then Iron Mike Babcock, he's not with an active NHL team. He agreed to basically volunteer for the University of Saskatchewan Huskies program, and he's still being paid by the Toronto Maple Leafs. But if Mike Babcock was going to come back, I could see him coming back to Buffalo. Apparently, back when he was kind of like the hot free agent, so to speak, in the coaching market, it was between Toronto and Buffalo. That was a different general manager at that time, but I could see Buffalo looking at Babcock, looking at what he did for the Toronto Maple Leafs, coming in there as a respected coach, turning the locker room around, getting that winning mentality, developing players like Morgan Riley. I mean, like Babcock or not, he's been amazing for Riley's career. So I could see Buffalo being like, you know what? What do we have to lose basically at this point? Because it either doesn't work, we get another coach, or it does work and we turn it around. Babcock was pretty instrumental in turning it around with like Lou Lamoriello and that old school mentality. And that has kind of a short shelf life, but it kind of turns it around. But I mean, like, we're professionals, we need to act like professionals. You need to come in, you got to work hard, you got to practice hard, you got to bring that to the games. Because the Leafs sucked like before he came there.
Yeah.
And then he came, turned it around, had some change in general manager, didn't align with that, and then left. And also all of that, that old school weird mind game thing came out. And, he's been on, networks saying, like NBC, he's been on there as an analyst for games and has kind of apologized. And so, I don't know, I could see it happening.
I would really hope that he gets more time away from I've watched his redemption tour on Sportsnet and NBC, and he doesn't seem to really get the issue. Like, he's taking ownership that he screwed up, but he's kind of like glossing over a little bit. I don't think he quite gets it. It probably hasn't been quite long enough, but I do agree, like, the redemption or the reclamation project coach goes to the reclamation project organization, basically. It's kind of like a buy low thing. Could see that being an option. Hopefully he gets a little bit more time out of the NHL game to kind of figure out what he actually, to figure out how to actually treat players and people. But, I was looking around too, and I saw another name thrown out there in Steve Ott, who's been an assistant in St. Louis for a few seasons. Be kind of an interesting, probably wouldn't be brought in as the head coach immediately, but to bring him in on the new coaching staff as well would be an interesting thought.
Yeah, he's been an assistant coach for a few years now, I think, hasn't he? And
yep.
He's kind of making a bit of a name for himself.
By all accounts, I think he's been doing a pretty good job. I think he's got pretty highly regarded in that position so far.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. I don't know. It's like a Buffalo. I think they have to get the right guy. It's going to be very important for them to get the right guy because if they get a guy who's never been a full time coach, like a full time head coach, it could work out or it could be really bad.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Um, like Jim Montgomery is another assistant. I think he's with St. Louis right now too. He had some success with the Stars. Was he left there and under those, I don't know what you want to call it, surprising circumstances. I think it was a substance abuse thing.
Yeah, he left to address some personal issues, personal life stuff.
Yeah, but he was a pretty good coach for them. So like that's another guy that's available that might get an opportunity in kind of a one of the least lower, I guess, less attractive options for a head coaching job in the NHL. Because like that's why I could see Mike Babcock being a legitimate option for them is because it's like I don't know if Gallant's gonna want to go there. He might just wait for another coach to get fired and then go there because I think Buffalo's going to be a really hard sell.
Yeah. You're gonna have to try and play on the coach's ego, basically. Be like, try and figure out a way to propose it as like, do you want to be the guy who comes in and fixes it? Get that on your track record.
Yeah.
Try and play to the ego card.
Yeah, that's like the more I talk about it, the more I think Babs makes sense for them. But I don't know. Like, do they want him in there? Do they think he's changed enough to the pros outweigh the cons? I don't know, but I'm sure they could work that into some sort of contract where it's like, if we find out that you're doing any of this bullshit, like you're gone, basically.
HR has to be present for all meetings.
Yeah, they have to have a union rep present.
Yeah.
An HLPA union rep at all coaching things.
Last little thing with the Sabres is, how does all of this start affecting Jack Eichel? Is he going to get traded at the deadline? Are they going to wait for the offseason? Is he going to give the organization, the summer to see what type of coach they bring in for him and if he wants to stick around? But it sounds like they're fielding offers. And I saw today a rumor that the price is 4 first-rounders or players picked in the first round.
Oh my God.
So, obviously that's like
4
initial
first-rounders.
Yeah, initial price. So obviously that's not going to be the final selling price. But, this is also a trade that nobody wins. Like, you're either the team getting Eichel and giving up a lot of a future, or you're the team giving up Eichel and getting a lot of potential future that may or may not, replace what Eichel brings. So it's kind of one of those you don't really win. No one really wins.
Yeah, I guess he's got 5 more years after this. He is hurt right now. I don't know if he's even going to be back for this season.
It sounds like it's a neck thing, right? So I think he's probably going to be done for a while. I don't think he's even on the ice.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. So, that's going to be a tough sell this season for a team to give up a lot for a guy who probably won't even play.
I do have a proposal from Edmonton, though.
Yeah.
Zach Cassian, Kyle Turris, Tyler Ennis, and a 2021 first.
Yeah.
All first-round picks.
Rounders. Yeah, why not?
Who says no to that
overall. One? Probably Buffalo. If they're going to do it, they're going to have to do something much, much better than the Ryan O'Reilly trade because that was awful.
It was poo.
So it was very, very bad. I don't know. I think maybe if they wait for the offseason for that and see if Kevin Adams is going to make any big, giant changes. But, yeah, whatever. If they do move him, they're going to have to get some really good stuff from it. And I would think that they wouldn't want anything from this year's draft because it's going to be just a total crapshoot, I think. Because, WHL has, a 24-game season. That's going to be really, really hard to.
There's not much going for scouting. Especially that first round. They're going to have the years prior of development, but there's so much that can change, especially out of the first 5 picks. That it's going to be a real weird one in the future to try and grade this draft against others. You're going to have guys who are probably should have been drafted in the first round go late because they didn't get that draft year to play. Guys who were good leading up to it are going to be drafted way above where they should be. So
yeah, Yeah, it's going to be tough. There's some teams that are higher up in the standings but have also struggled lately. The first one I kind of wanted to talk about is the Philadelphia Flyers, and they've been having just an awful March. So let's just quickly recap through their games so far in March. So they opened up the month with a 5-2 loss against the Penguins on the 2nd. Really kind of set the tone for the rest of the month. They followed that up with a 4-3 win against the Penguins, and then they followed that one up with a 4-3 loss against the Penguins. So they were 1-2 against the Penguins. They moved on. They played the Capitals, where they had a 3-1 loss against the Capitals on the 7th. They quickly played the Sabres and got a nice easy win, but it wasn't nice and easy because it was 5-4.
And also in a shootout. Took them all the way to the shootout to get through the Sabres.
Yeah. And then 5-3 loss against the Capitals on the 11th. 5-4 loss against the Capitals on the 13th. So 0-3 against the Caps. 1-0 against Buffalo in a shootout, like you mentioned. And then they played the Rangers. 5-4 overtime win against them on the 15th. 9-0 loss against the New York Rangers on St. Patty's Day on the 17th. And that's the game that Zibanejad, just annihilated them. And then, so they're 1-1 against the Rangers. 4-3 win against the Islanders on March 18th. Couturier got hurt in that game. 6-1 loss against the Islanders on March 20th. So they're 1-1 against the Islanders. And so if you add all that up, they have 32 goals for and 51 goals against. So it's a minus 19 goal differential, which is really bad. And so that's 12, 13 games. So 13 games, they gave up 51 goals against. They gave up 52 in their first 18. So they're definitely getting scored on more now. So they're 4-7-0 in March, 15-11-3 on the season, 5th in the division right now, behind Washington, the Islanders, Pittsburgh, and Boston. And yeah, that month has really hurt them. There's still obviously a chance that they can get into that final playoff spot, but man, their goalies have been letting them down. I don't know. Have you watched any of their games at all?
No.
It's been rough, man. Carter Hart 8-7-3 on the year, at .875 save percentage, 3.83 goals against on the season.
That's hurt.
His goals saved above average, league worst, minus 17.68.
Oof. Yeah, so remember when we were talking about him being the goaltender of the future down there? Finally solving their goaltending woes.
Yeah, he has not been good. Matt Murray is above him, minus 16.76. Hogberg is at minus 10.65. So,
are those the three worst in the league?
Yes, they're three worst.
So that's a pretty big drop even.
Yeah, the Flyers are allowing the NHL's second most goals per game at 3.55 goals against per game. Senators are worst at 3.91.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the division standings here, I mean, the Flyers have given up 105 goals, and then Boston, the team in fourth above them in the division, has given up 66. And I mean, even the Rangers and the Devils in 6-7, actually even Buffalo, they've given up more goals than Buffalo.
Wow.
Rangers, the team directly below them, have given up 79. The Devils in 7th, 90, and Buffalo 101 to Philly's 105.
It's funny that you mentioned Buffalo, because in that game on March 9th, so Carter Hart started. He played the first period. He let in 3 goals on 8 shots. He had a .625 save percentage. And in March, he's played in every single game because both he and Elliott have been really bad. And so they've kind of been like swapping between them. Like, I probably have rotated a few times in games. He has had a save percentage above .889. He hasn't had a save percentage above .889 in the month of March, Carter Hart.
That is awful.
Yes.
to put it quite bluntly.
Yeah. So he's had a few in like the 700s, that .625 that I mentioned. Elliott's been, bad as well. He's On the season, he's got a .892 save percentage and a 2.97 goals against average, minus 4.96 goals saved above average. So, definitely not amazing, but, I guess he's playing less than Carter Hart, doing a little bit better. But, man, like, I don't know if it's just they're running Carter Hart ragged or if he's just really, he's got some sort of injury or it's just the condensed schedule or what, but he has not been having a good year so far. And I picked the Flyers to go all the way this season, and they're not looking like a team that can do it because they're letting in too many goals. And I think I was watching a broadcast and they were talking about how the retirement of Matt Niskanen really did a lot to this team because, and this is something that you actually mentioned when they signed, what's his name, Gustafsson. You were like, that doesn't make sense to you because he's an offensive guy. He's practically a winger, and you had Matt Niskanen, who's like a super stable defenseman. He played with Provorov, and like I don't know if that's a huge factor, but like they're not able to outscore their problems every single game as we've seen, and just that 9-0 loss, and then two games later a 6-1 loss, like oof.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. Looking back to 1920 with Matt Niskanen, he averaged just under 22 minutes of ice time per game. So, yeah, he's also, he's more of a defensive guy, but he also had 33 points himself on the season. So you've got a guy with the defensive stability of Niskanen putting up those points, playing 22 minutes a night, and then you bring in Gustafsson, like I said, he's basically a winger. He doesn't provide that defensive stability. He's not replacing those minutes very well. So yeah. I could absolutely see that having an impact, especially because, Niskanen himself is, an experienced veteran winner. He's played with Pittsburgh, played with Washington. So that's a big loss for the locker room.
Yeah, and, Gustafsson and Gostisbehere has kind of been, like, hot switching, like, healthy scratch, basically. Like, they've been kind of swapping them out. And they're both kind of play that exact same way, but Gostisbehere was putting up points. They got scratched. Gustafsson comes in, but it's like I don't think the offensive guys are. They are who they are, but like your defensive guys have got to step up, I think, and if you don't have Niskanen to eat those minutes.
With the goalies, is it a case of them giving up way too many goals they shouldn't, the easy ones they should save, or is it a case of the chances, like the defense not preventing the chances in the first place? Or is it kind of just that combination of both?
It's probably a bit of both. I mean, like, I haven't watched every single one of their games, but like Carter Hart's definitely been letting in some softies. Like, it's like some they should have had back. Yeah, and like 3 goals on 8 shots, like in one period. I don't know. I mean, it's against Buffalo, so how high danger could they have really been, right?
Probably didn't even mean to shoot it on the net.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of interesting to see that the Flyers are like the second worst in the league at giving up goals, and the Senators are the league worst. But like for the Senators, it's like they're kind of having a good season, like for them, right? Like they're kind of they're kind of where they're expected to be, but they're entertaining and they're making it interesting, and they're beating good teams and stuff. But the Flyers is like, we should be doing better than this by a lot. Like we should be not bottom of the barrel here. We should be much, much better at this. So, kind of that juxtaposition between the two teams and where they should be. The Flyers should be contending, but they're not.
Like the top 2 spots in that division.
Yeah. Yeah, so just kind of rough. So I don't know if they got to turn it around. They got to either jump up the scoring here. I don't know if Couturier was playing today, but it sounded like he was. It was a game-time decision,
but he is in the lineup, yeah.
Because they need him. Because
I guess
if he's hot, they're doing well.
Yeah. So Couturier's only played 18 games this season. He's got 19 points, but he's been injured. I think he was on the COVID list for a while. So I mean, they've been missing him for 11 games of their season, which that's got to have a big impact too, because it's the type of player he is, the Selke candidate, Selke winner. That's a big loss for them as well in their top end forwards.
Yeah, I think he had some like rib separation issue or injury or something like that and held him out of the lineup. But I mean, he was in there for like that game against the Rangers where they let up 9 goals. I think he was a -3. So it's like, everybody's got to do better. And
Yep.
JVR has really, really kind of cooled off. He was like scoring at an absurd pace in February, I think, and he's really kind of petered off. And so I don't know what it is, just kind of a collective thing where everyone's kind of got to step it up here a bit and play better hockey. But they're not alone in struggling. I also have a team that I did a little research on here that's struggling in the month of March. And I said it in I think our last episode, but beware the Ides of March. Backstabbing is the month of March with Caesar. So the Toronto Maple Leafs are also having a pretty bad March. They opened up the month with that series against the Oilers. 2 out of the 3 games were in March, and so they obviously won those. They really did a number on the Oilers. But since then, they've really struggled. They're 3-6 since that series against the Oilers. So March 1st and March 3rd, they won against the Oilers. March 4th and March 6th, they lost back-to-back against Vancouver. Followed it up with a loss against the Jets. They won an OT against the Jets, and then they lost on the 13th against the Jets. So they were 1-2 against the Jets. And the Jets got a point in every one of those games. And then they lost against Ottawa on the 14th, lost against Calgary on the 19th, and their last game they won against Calgary on the 20th. So they're 4-6-0 in their last 10, but they're 3-6 since that series against the Oilers. And since that series against the Oilers, Anderson has been sub 900 in 5 games in save percentage. And in the last game, they had Jack Campbell in net, so he got the win against Calgary. So
yeah, so again, just a bad month in net, and that's huge because that's kind of the selling point of Toronto's roster over a lot of the North Division teams is that they have this type of goalie in Frederik Andersen. He's kind of struggled. He's had his struggles through stretches over his career, but this season especially, he hasn't been great this season overall, but this month, like you said, has been especially difficult. Yeah,
and another thing is that Austin Matthews is, dealing with some sort of wrist or hand injury, and so he's definitely cooled off a bit. He's been scoreless in the last 2. He's had a couple assists, 2-point game against Winnipeg in that OT win. But he's still playing a lot, but he's had to play in different positions, like on the power play. He's not that that one-timer like to the goalie's left. He usually likes to hang out there and get those one-timer passes from Marner or Riley. They've had to rotate him around, and he's been in front of the net. He's been at the top of at the blue line on the power play, and so they're kind of moving him around, and so it's very obvious that he doesn't have the shot right now, and they're really seeing that in the score line because they normally would get a goal a game from him, and they're not getting it right now, and there's nobody else that can really produce like him on the team.
Yeah, so this is a really tricky one for the team because at what point, because the injury is clearly affecting him and his ability to perform as he can on the ice. Is he still better than, but he's probably still better than whatever they would be able to bring in to replace him. At what point would the team shut him down, get that thing healed up? Because, are they gonna ride this injury through the whole season, through the playoffs, or do they have time to, sit him out for a bit, heal it up, and then have him better for the playoffs?
Yeah, that's a tough call because they've really given up some ground in the standings. It seems like at the time of that series against the Oilers, they're really holding on to that number 1 spot, but the Oilers have kind of caught up a bit here now.
The Oilers are tied in points with Toronto's got 2 games in hand over Edmonton, and even Winnipeg is only 4 points back with the game in hand. Montreal's 5 points back with the game in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if Toronto continues on the same trajectory they are, then Winnipeg's only going to take a couple more games playing their 500 hockey to catch up.
Wild. That the Oilers have a shot here at surpassing them.
And
just
you know
what?
I was just going to say there's another very significant series on, recording this on the 22nd on this weekend, the 27th and the 29th, where Toronto plays Edmonton 2 games again. And then right after that, they play Winnipeg 2 games. So that's going to be a really huge 5 days there leading into the last month of the season.
Yeah, that Oilers series is going to be really important. And I think that series that the Jets had against the Leafs could turn out to be very important too, where they, on the March 9th, 11th, and 13th, where they beat them in regulation. The Jets beat them in regulation twice and forced an OT, and the Jets lost an OT once, but they got a point out of every single one of those. So that could be very important, when it gets down to the end of the season here, because it is, every point is worth a lot more in this compressed schedule. But I'm just taking a look at Matthews' stat line here for March, and he's got 3 goals in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. So, for anybody else in the league, that would be acceptable production. But it's like, if you look at the month before that, like he's almost got he's over a point per game easily, and he's almost got like a goal a game, sometimes 2. And so they're really feeling his injury right now. And I think we're seeing that, like, the Oilers and the Jets could really capitalize on that and surpass them and get a better playoff seed. So that's like some real significance, and to compound that, they're getting some subpar goaltending. And I think every time the Leafs wear like those St. Pat's jerseys, like, they're really nice, but they lose like almost every time that they wear those. So that's got to be frustrating to watch, knowing that we're wearing our loser jerseys tonight.
Well,
so
it's because they're the Leafs. Like, they're blue, right? They aren't used to playing with teammates wearing green, so they never really know where anybody is.
It was funny because I think it was Anderson in that he had like a helmet that was all done up for the St. Pat's, but his pads were still like white and blue, so it just looked terrible. It looked really bad. But yeah, I mean, I think Toronto they've got to figure out what to do with Matthews. Like, you're right. Like, do they sit him because he is still playing good hockey? He's just not able to score like he was before that injury. But like, he's still an unreal player. But do you sit him out and hope that he gets healed up, or is it not going to happen? Because it's like playoff environment right now, and he is going to get targeted, right? And there's going to be lots of little slashes on his wrist and hands, and so it could be worse. So yeah, they're kind of in a bit of a pickle here because they're in first, but it's kind of slipping away from them if they keep, playing this way where they're not winning. And I think it's kind of, we have that mentality in Canada where like Toronto's the center of the universe, or at least that's what the media tells us. And this has kind of been quiet, I think, that they're 3-6 in their last 9 games.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the fan base has done their fair share of getting it there. I mean, the fan base has been pretty jumping very all over the place with their emotions this season, and especially through this, they've been pretty vocal on Twitter about dissatisfaction with certain things, kind of that blow it up mentality immediately. I don't think the media has to get involved on that one.
No, but normally the media is like, the Leafs win a game and they're like, this is the best team ever, and then they lose a game and they're like, what's wrong with the Leafs? And I don't think I've been seeing that in March anyway. So yeah, I mean, It's gonna be interesting to see what they do with Anderson after this season because, like, do they move on from him? They re-sign him?
Yeah, because he is a UFA. He is a UFA. So this is going to be interesting because, we'll have to take a look into what type of goalies are available this offseason. But, would the Leafs field a big offer out to Anaheim for John Gibson? We've heard some teams linked to be Anaheim maybe being willing to part with him. Would they try Anaheim goalie number 2? Or do they stick with Freddie Anderson because he's been there for a while, and will they be able to get anyone who's better? Because I don't think they have any goaltending prospects coming up to really take over.
No, and whoever they waive keeps getting claimed by Vancouver, so Vancouver has
Kyle
claimed
Dubas is doing a great job at filling out Vancouver's depth this season.
Yeah, Jimmy Vesey and Travis Boyd have both been claimed by Vancouver. And so I wonder how long it's going to be until Alex Galchenyuk is claimed by Vancouver and ends up playing there. Yeah, I mean, there's teams that definitely have like a connection with other teams for kind of a trade pipeline. And so I wonder if Toronto would kind of go the same route and go for Gibson. I don't know how they would make that work. They'd have to give up something probably pretty big for Gibson because I know he's super valuable to the Ducks.
Yeah. But I mean, Gibson is really usually one of like the top 5, top 10 goalies in the league easily. It's hard to really gauge that with him playing on Anaheim and, them not being very good, but in general he's definitely up there as one of the best in the league.
Yeah, I kind of heard that Dallas might be looking to move a goalie like when Bishop comes back, because they've got Hudobin, who's serving as their starter right now, but Ottinger has been, serviceable as a backup. So when Bishop comes back, they might be looking to shed some cap space. They might want to move Hudobin. They might make that decision, right? So I don't know if Hudobin would be the guy that Toronto would want, but he's signed to a relatively cheap deal, and they'd be able to fit him in, and he wouldn't be super expensive. So, they might want to do that, but that's if Dallas wants to do it, because if Bishop gets hurt again and they use Ottinger, like that's pretty dicey. So, I don't know. There might be a few other goalies that they might target, but I think we'll probably see Anderson's time as a Leaf come to an end. I don't think they'll want to re-sign him, especially if he's sub 900 for the rest of the year. Who knows? Maybe Jack Campbell will take over, because he's been playing okay since coming back from injury, since getting stomped by Tkachuk.
He was kind of a pretty highly touted goalie prospect for a bit, and then never really was able to take the next step. So it'll be interesting. Maybe they can find a way to roll with their backups. Maybe the team's good enough for that. But Anderson, even last season, he only had a .909 save percentage, which isn't particularly great out of a starter.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a couple season long trend, and I don't disagree that I think the Leafs are probably going to be looking to shore up that position a bit and help out in a way that their defense maybe isn't able to, because they still are more of an offensive based team. They might need a goalie who can be that game changer more than Anderson has been lately.
Yeah, I wonder if they maybe like Korpisalo or one of those teams that kind of has like two guys. Maybe they go for Dreger.
Dreger, I imagine, is major expansion draft bait for Seattle. So I don't know if he'll make it to Toronto, but that's absolutely an option, because he showed that he can be good over the last couple seasons filling in for Bob.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess Buffalo's going to be looking for coach scraps, and Toronto might be looking for goalie scraps after the expansion. Well, I'm sure the Vancouver Canucks will part with one gently used Braden Holtby.
His redemption arc going to Toronto and winning its second cup.
Oh, man. No. Please not. Please
That
not
was
Holtby.
perfect answer.
Anybody but Holtz. I'm okay with him winning another cup, but just not with Toronto. I would not want to see that. Not with Toronto and not with the Penguins. If he did it with Vancouver, I'd be fine with it.
So that wraps things up for this time here on Clappercast. Make sure you rate and review this episode and toss a follow or subscribe our way. For more content, you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Clappercast Media or on Twitter at Clappercast. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with more hockey talk.